Hello and welcome back to Will I Vike It. Today, I'm absolutely thrilled to be joined by a very special guest, the incredible Eileen Budd. But before I introduce Eileen, I also need to mention this is a special crossover episode. So I'm actually joined by my co-host from Wyrd Wessex, Andy Stevens. So
Hello.
yeah, hello Andy, hello Eileen. Welcome
I'm
to the
surprised.
show.
I'm upset you didn't say that I was also a very special guest.
You're just a guest, co-host. I mean, that's you've been elevated.
Honored.
So yeah, thank you for joining us, Eileen.
You're welcome.
Um,
Thank you for having me on.
yeah, and actually, I'll probably quick shout out to Rona if she's listening because that's who suggested that you'd make a good guest for the show.
Oh, she's so
And
lovely. Hi, Rona.
yeah, yeah, so this is if anyone's wondering kind of why Andy's joined me as well. So we're going to do a sort of two-part here. So we're going to have a general chat with Eileen about what she does, and then we're going to move on and we're going to talk about something related to folklore, which I guess we'll save till later what that will be. Um, so Eileen, do you think maybe you could start off kind of for anyone in the audience that doesn't know who you are, hasn't come across you, kind of what's your elevator pitch? What is it that you do?
Um, I am a storyteller who travels all over Scotland, and I share stories, folk stories about objects, mainly, because I used to work in museums for a very long time, and I really got into the idea of telling stories about objects, but not okay, so there's three different types of stories, right? You've got your stories of the castle, the government stories, the stories of the church, the religious stories, and then you've got your stories of the village, okay? The normal people stories. And the first two, well, they're just very top-down information. They tell you what's good politic to know. And a lot of
Yeah.
the big museums, that's the stories that you get. The stories I like to tell are the ones from the village, because they tell you everything else, whether it's good politic to know or not. And so I go around Scotland with this, my traveling folk museum, which is a whole bunch of objects that were donated to me by people. The objects have no real monetary value, but they have huge amounts of stories attached to them. And so I talk about that. So it's very much kind of working class culture. And yeah, it's an interesting folklore. And recently, I don't know if it's the age I am, but recently I'm getting into plants, right? Because plants have this amazing folklore attached to them as well, especially like our native herbs and stuff. So
Yeah.
recently I've been taking lots of really smelly native herbs with me as well. So you can kind of smell the third century,
Bit more
smell the history.
interactive.
Yeah, totally. So that's what I do. I travel all over Scotland and I tell stories with objects. That's my elevator pitch.
First of
Great
all,
stuff.
I'm pinching that idea with the herbs for stories. That's fantastic. I love that.
It's so
Um,
good. It's so good. We've also got to say, like, who wants to smell what a monk might smell like? Who wants to scratch and sniff a monk?
Scratch and
Everyone's
Sniff
like,
Monk. Oh,
no, don't do that in
maybe
schools,
that's my new band name. I don't know.
though.
Um,
Have it on a t-shirt.
the Scratch and Sniff Monks. Um,
Live, one night only.
so that's all it would take.
Disrobed.
Oh, so when did you first become interested in storytelling and like sort of traditional folklore? Was there a particular moment, an experience that sparked that passion, or was it sort of more of something that you kind of always had growing up through your, sort of just childhood onwards?
Well, I come from a family of storytellers, so like most of the stories that I share, I learned from the at the feet of my grandmother and grandfather, aunts and uncles, my mum and dad, family friends. They really believed in maintaining that kind of oral tradition of maintaining those stories. And I am legally blind, but nobody figured that out until I was about 8. So by that time, I'd become really, really good at listening and paying attention to like, sounds and things.
Yeah.
So I became really adept at remembering stories and what I was told, so I could kind of repeat it verbatim. Um, and so I loved those stories. I was so enchanted with those stories, especially like my grandfather, right? Because he smoked this pipe and like he'd sit in this big chair and he would just be like telling a story all like engulfed in smoke and it's very cool.
Yeah.
Passive smoking, obviously, but never mind, fine.
Different time.
A different time. It was the 80s. So yeah, I just became like really, I thought it was fascinating. It was wonderful. And but I didn't see it as being a career option. Do you know what I mean? Like telling these
Yeah.
stories. And that's how I ended up in museums, because I was like, wow, you've got millions of objects and they all have stories, and like they would be so good to tell those stories. And then I find out that you get limited as to what stories you get to tell. So yeah, it kind of frustrated me for a while. And then I was working in London and I moved back to Scotland to have my son. And I just didn't go back to London basically. I was like, right,
Good choice.
yes, and I'm gonna share these stories. And people, it was like COVID times, and people were asking me to tell stories online. And specifically from the book that I wrote, which is like Ossian warrior poet. It's
Yeah.
all these like third century Finn McCool type stories and legends. And yeah, and then people were asking me for more stories and like, did I know any more stories? And I was like, yes, I do. Here they are. And then it just kind of grew arms and legs from there. It was really cool. And the enthusiasm that I've and support for sharing these stories has been like very unexpected, but just yeah, wonderful. Just the most wonderful thing. It's the
Yeah.
best job.
It's fantastic.
So is there something particularly about kind of Scottish myths and legends that kind of captivate you more than stories from elsewhere, other than being from Scotland?
That's a main part.
Yeah.
Uh, well, because those are the ones that I grew up hearing. But the other thing
Mm.
is that, like, when I was growing up, we didn't get a lot of our own history in schools. We didn't get a lot of our languages in schools. You didn't get a lot of Scots. Speaking Scots was a problem. Speaking Gaelic was a problem.
Yeah.
And yet, like in these stories, you have these the languages are in there, and the meaning behind it is in there, and the songs are in there, and the traditions are in there. There's so much in them, and they're just a treasure trove of folk history and our history, you know. And so I think that's the thing that kind of really attracted me to them. And also speaking to like a lot of other, I'm very lucky because I grew up with these stories, right? But there's people that I know, they're Scottish, lived here all their lives, um, but they didn't grow up with that and they don't know the stories. And so, uh, yeah, I just feel like compelled to share them, really. It's
Mm.
like, I don't know, that's it. Really.
I mean,
But
they
I
are.
love other stories as well. Like I love finding parity, especially with like different cultures. Like, you'll share a story and there'll be somebody in India, for example, go, oh, like we've got a really similar story and it goes like this. And you go, oh, that's so interesting.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, if you find the connection. And I think that's the thing as well that I love about it is that it's like the most human way of communicating, just like sharing stories and finding those
Yeah.
like connections.
I mean, that's it, isn't it? Like you look at things like the salmon of knowledge, you get mirrors to like that in so many different cultures, and like, right down to the, sort of burning the salmon and bursting with your thumb, and you get that in like, sort of Norse mythology, and also, there's so many like little similarities where if it's not even the sort of same themes, it's kind of the same, like literally the same beats of a story. You'll find it in like, those parallels to it. And I mean, in like the
Hmm.
religious stories as well, but yeah.
Yeah, with like, for example, Viking stories. So our Scottish story that has like almost exact like parity, like beat for beat, everything, is the story of the ugly foot. It's an ugly foot story. So like, somebody goes into a pub and they've got this like weird, they're wearing a weird boot thing, and it turns out they've got like a really like a club foot, or they've got like a cloven foot, or anyway, we've got multiple versions of this story. And it's in, it's also a Viking story, but it's almost exact.
Yeah, and I do wonder whether that was like the Norse influence in Scotland, either influencing Scottish folklore or Scottish folklore influencing the Norse folklore that they were taking back with them, or whether it
Yeah,
just, goes to some older, deeper folk memory beyond that, maybe. But um,
yeah, that's it. It's like that's the thing. You get these wonderful crossovers, and people are traveling. And with our Viking folk, you've got people who are settling as well. So if they're
yeah,
settling, then you're kind of building up communities. And you get that with the Arthur stories, Arthurian stories. You know, we've got so many stories that are kind of like slightly related to those stories, but then there's like things in Welsh folklore and yeah, so I don't know, it's fascinating. I think it's really, really interesting.
yeah, no, exactly. And as you say, the Arthurian ones, and you sort of see the other bits that later join the Arthurian folklore as well, like sort of the sort of early versions of Merlin, and then Lancelot being added later on from that, and it's
Yeah, because we've got like, for example, we've got a Pictish stone that tells an Arthurian legend. It's like it's carved out to tell the story of um, you know, the Guinevere essentially being torn apart by wild dogs for being unfaithful. One of those joyous, grim stories. But like the fact that we have that from that time in history, and like you can see it like early modern times, the development of those stories into
yeah,
courtly love and all that kind of thing into medieval times. Yeah, it reminds you that no matter how the stories evolve over time, they have the same kind of spine, or the same, yeah, interesting themes in them.
So before we kind of I do want to talk to you about the At Home with the Pics podcast, but before we do, I think you kind of mentioned the Travelling Folk Museum a bit, but there's kind of a couple of other questions I had around that, if you like, before we do that. Um, so I was wondering if there's a particular item that you've got in your collection that's, yeah, maybe it seems simple, but it holds a richer narrative that you've uncovered.
Mm. There's quite a few things. Hang on, I've got one hanging up behind me. This is not in
Okay,
the official collection. This is just,
that's
it's just
fine.
another example.
Yeah.
Hang on.
Okay.
It's right here. There we go. So I don't know if you can see that. It's a cruisie lamp,
yeah,
an oil lamp.
Yeah.
Uh, so this is a really well. There's several stories that are pretty poignant about them. One of the story, obviously, is you can go into the fact this was we were still using cruisy lamps right up until like 1800s, late 1800s. That was our form of light. You'd light it. So there's a whole story about there's stories about whaling that you could talk about. There's stories about poverty, weavers, all sorts of things,
Mm.
artisans, because artists would need ones made by blacksmiths with like extra lips so they could have extra light because we all work late into the night if you're creative, um so you would need it. And also
Yeah.
it's winter, you don't have a lot of daylight. But then there's also beautiful folklore about like rebirth and a light in the darkness. And then there's something that like a real story, like a story that happened to me, a real story, but like something that happened to me, was I was in a school, And I took this around the schools. I take these objects, and it's not this one, but a different one. Very similar. And what I like to do is get the kids to kind of handle the objects. They're all handling objects, and explore it and look at it. How was it made? Who might have made it? You know, think about it, and then try and guess what it is. And this school, like, I was there all day, and nobody had guessed it right, which is fine. It's primary school. You wouldn't expect them to, and that's fine. Wonderful guesses, loads of brilliant guesses. And then the last class of the day, I went in, and the teacher said, right, there's a child at the back, you know, might walk out and might have a problem with, and blah, blah, blah. It's not you, it's them. I was like, right, okay. So pass this around, like, guess what it is. Everyone's guessing. No one's getting it right. La, la, la. Gets to this child. And they look at it for like a couple of seconds, and then they say, it's a lamp. And I'm like, yeah, that's great. Like, well done. Yeah. Like, everyone, round of applause. And so, you know, they get a round of applause. And I got an email later to say that, like, you know, because I said, you know, you're the first person in your whole school to get that right. So well done. And I got an email later from the teacher saying, that was the first time they had ever had a right answer in a class, like the whole of their school career. And they were in like P4. And then from that, you know, this child has been like, he started to like write stories and illustrate them. Like, he's making me comic books and stuff now. So it's the simplest wee object, but
Yeah.
it holds so much, so much more than
incredible.
oil.
Yeah.
And that's become its own story attached to that object now, you know, which is brilliant.
Yeah.
It's and it is those moments, isn't it? Like my day job, I work with kids, and when you get that experience and you get that kid that struggles with other things because it's something outside the norm and it's someone different, and you know, sort of, as well as, you know, you must have been presenting it as well, and it just clicks and they have that moment, and it means so much, you know, and it's kind of, you know, it's you know, one of the big reasons why, you know, I'm guessing you do it. You know, it's
Oh yeah.
that kind of experience.
Yeah. No, it's addictive. You know, when you realize that, like, it's the same with adults as well, though, actually. When people find out part of their history or
Yeah,
part of their culture that they didn't know before, and like it, you know, it sparks something in them. It's just this magic. And you get kind of addicted to that magic. You kind of
absolutely,
like,
absolutely, you do. It's no, it's really special, and you know, I think some kids just resonate with that sort of thing a bit more as well, don't they?
hmm. And they also love skulls. So I like to take skulls with me because
Oh yeah,
skulls have loads of stories. Um, yeah, there's some good stories about skulls as well. But they're mostly kind of like our Scottish folk tradition is like an animist one. So it's mostly kind of, you know, you get to kind of tell the story of yeah, the story of the animal, which is kind of nice. Um, so yeah, they're all folk objects. They're all very simple objects, really. There's nothing super complicated. Although I've got a replica Jacobite sword, which I have to do risk assessments for to take into take into
I know how that
schools.
goes. I'd often also take I often take sort of part of my job. I take swords into schools and things, and sort of let kids handle different bits of weaponry. So yeah,
Yeah, oh, it's fun. And yeah, there's another weapon I like to take. A friend of mine, a blacksmith pal, Matty Fletford, he made me a couple of caltrops, which are like, you
nice. Yeah,
know,
yeah, yeah.
amazing ancient weapons. And I love teaching children how to deploy caltrops. So much fun.
Oh. Come the Scottish uprising, and all these young Scots will be chucking caltrops out, and it'll be yeah, you'll be the one to teach them how to use them. Um, So yeah, I guess sort of kind of linking onto that a little bit. Um, with with the traveling folk museum, what do you hope? I mean, apart from obviously that experience just there, what do you hope people take away from it? Like, is it sort of the historical or sort of like that emotional connection that you obviously feel with the stories as well?
I don't mind. I don't mind what they take from it. I suppose the reason I really wanted
Hopefully not your
to do
caltrops, right?
yeah, don't take any of the objects. That is a no-no. Um, otherwise I will get my sword. Um, that's the thing. I don't think you can be too prescriptive with what people take away. I've never liked those stories where like you kind of go, and the moral of the story is, like
Yeah.
old He-Man cartoons, like it's a
It's
bit,
like reminds me of Thundercats. It just goes
yeah,
to show that.
yeah, exactly. Never do drugs. Yes, yes.
There's the soundbite.
Yeah, so
Mm,
I don't like to do that. I'd like people to kind of take away whatever they want to, really, because I think that the stories are these multi-generational community memory banks. There's layers and layers and layers of stuff in there. So what I take from a story or the meaning it has for me will not be the same as it is for somebody else. But the reason I got into including object handling and herb sniffing in my storytelling was because when I worked in museums and we would do object handling sessions with people, it was really cool. Like people got to like touch history and explore it, and you learn so much more about an object if you get to handle it rather than it just being behind glass or you read
yeah.
100%.
somebody else's like interpretation of it. And that's great. The academic interpretation is important. But like, if you're, especially if you're a maker, right? If you're like a blacksmith and you look at that cruisie lamp and you go, like I can tell you what kind of hammer was made on that, or like, I can tell you what kind of processes involved. So like people have their own stories that they could attach to those objects. And I love hearing them as well, because that's something you don't get from books or from, just looking at things behind glass. I think I love the fact that it opens up all these different dialogues and all these opportunities for conversations, and sometimes quite difficult conversations, or things that people wouldn't necessarily share outside of like a storytelling session, but they feel compelled to tell a story while they're holding an object. And I think it's also kind of distracting because we're used to uh, we're used to broadcasting information and we're used to taking it in quite passively. And so if somebody's standing up and telling a story, like, you might get people who are like switching off or like check their phone, or but if you give them something to look at and hold, like, you've got to be, and also if you tell them this is right, you just hold that, it's 200 years old, right? So don't drop it. You're like, so, so they're paying attention and listening, and but as well, it's this like being able to add things to it that I wouldn't know. And I think that's the nice thing about traveling with this museum is that you get to speak to people from all different kinds of communities, all different ages, and everybody is adding to this community memory bank, which is just, again, it's magic, it's wonderful.
No, I mean, yeah, I think it was the Mary Rose Museum. They had some rope from the Mary Rose that they were just handing about, and like you could still smell the pitch on it, which
Mm.
was phenomenal. It was amazing.
Yeah.
But
Well, like
uh,
Jorvik Stinky Museum.
yeah,
Brilliant. Fantastic.
Stinky Museum.
Got a
I like,
reputation, that place, the Stinky
oh,
Museum. I realized actually, whilst we were talking about folklore, that the one thing I haven't included in any of my questions, but you're welcome to plug at the end, but it kind of ties in with what we're talking about here, is that you have a podcast on folklore. And for some reason, when I was putting the questions together, although I've listened to almost the whole thing, it completely went over my head to even bring it up. So I don't know whether you want to save it for a plug at the end or if you want to tie it into what you've been talking about. I mean,
Yeah, happy to tie it in. Um,
yeah,
yeah, so there's lots of one of the things I'm really interested in is our connections with the Scottish diaspora overseas. And obviously a lot of people overseas are not able to come to like storytelling sessions or find funding to get me over there, unfortunately. Not that I'm
yeah,
super keen to go to America right now, I have to say.
yeah, that's
But
fair.
yeah, but
Absolutely.
yeah. So I was trying to think of a way really to kind of share the stories more widely, and I started this
Yeah,
Scottish folk podcast. Uh, the thing is, though, with balancing kind of like, solo parenting and working and traveling and everything else, it has because I need silence, I need quiet, and I have a child. It's very hard to
yep.
it's very hard to yeah, to find the time to do that.
My
So
child keeps trying to get on the podcast, so I'm like,
later on,
she's been on a couple of times to
yeah.
do a few things, but like on this one she's been on, we did a road trip to Norway and we got sweets in every country and she basically sat there and ate sweets and told me whether they were good or not.
Amazing.
So yeah, she's had a couple of appearances, but
I should
she
have
is
done that when
keen.
we went to Cornwall. Just
Yeah.
insist you bought me sweets and rated them in the van, you know.
Oh, so yeah, so I need to
Yeah.
yeah, I really enjoy doing that because I yeah, I think if I could have like a radio show and I could just go on and talk and then leave again and somebody else did all the editing and then like I think that would be the dream. Um
That's Andy's dream because I do all the editing.
I just get to
It's
come
just like,
along and talk about like folklore and aliens and stuff. I love it.
it just goes away and just leaves me to
I know
it.
for this one, I suffer a bit more when I'm on this one. You make me eat gross stuff sometimes.
Gotta get payback.
So yeah, so I I love doing my podcast, but I haven't done it in like, yeah, over a year now, and I'm sort of stacking up all this stuff um to share on it, and then because I've suddenly got very, very busy with
Yeah.
gigs, it just hasn't happened, and I feel guilty about it. It's one of these things I feel guilty about at like 4 a.m.
Yep. Know that
Because like,
feeling. Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. Um, I mean, I noticed as well, kind of the earlier ones were shorter, and then they've gradually got longer and longer as you've gone along. So obviously that then
yeah.
takes more effort to write and put together and record and edit and yeah,
Yeah. Well, it's because people were telling me they were too short. They were like, more.
yeah.
I was like, okay. But yeah, it
Yeah.
does. It takes longer, and then yeah, the editing.
It's
And
weird
because I
because me
don't,
and Andy get people asking us to do less, but like
Yeah, I was gonna say that's our problem.
and because I don't have like any fancy editing software,
Yeah.
like I record on my phone, and it's like, uh, yeah, one take, gotta get it right. That's it.
Wow.
Put it up. Yeah. So
Imagine doing that, Andy. That would save some time, wouldn't it?
Couldn't imagine it. No, we're getting better at that. We're getting better at
Like 3 hours later, we've recorded the first 10 minutes.
that.
but it's a good 10 minutes, you see. It's a quality
Solid
10
10
minutes.
minutes. So, your other podcast is At Home with the Pics. Um, and I thought a good place to start with that is what sparked your interest in the subject and then kind of what led you to create the series in the first place.
Oh. Well, the pics are a fascinating subject. They've always really intrigued me. When I worked for National Museum Scotland, it's the early people gallery was one of the most compelling. The stories that I know, the folk stories that I know that are associated with Pictish stones are also really compelling. because they tend to,
Yeah.
there's some really interesting stories that are associated with like springs and holy wells and battles and the presence of a Pictish stone. And sometimes the carving kind of tallies up with the folklore.
Yeah.
If you see like there's a couple of ones that have got like kelpies on them or different things like that, which relate to either a
The
water
wee
dragon
beasties.
story or kelpie stories. So that was always compelling for me because of the association with folklore.
Yeah.
But also like the mystery of them and the forts, because where I live in Angus, like Aberlemno is literally over the back of me, which is where just, a huge amount of Pictish stones and history and all sorts of things. And just this idea of these like vitrified forts and the brochs and like this ancient history and how it changed from like how like the architecture that they had changed round about Pictish times than it had been like in Iron Age times, to go from round houses to like rectangles. It's fascinating. It's always fascinating to me. And like the book that I wrote, like Ossian Warrior Poet, it's got illustrations like ideas about the Picts, because some of the stories in that were about battles between like Vikings, Picts, and Scots, um, and again, these are all like things that the first time I read those stories, I was like a young teenager, and they were really just they kind of made sense to me that like we would have stories about battles and ancient people and like big brochs and big things. It made sense. Like not all of our stories are about fairies or bits and bobs like that. So it was just, I don't know, it was just this compelling idea, this like a really ancient people, but we might have shared this kind of mythology with them in some sense. Because I mean, as
Yeah.
well, like a lot of folklorists believe that our stories are similar to the stories that would have been told, in Bronze Age. And so I love that the idea that like this ancient people who had like very much an oral culture, as current theory suggests they did, um, that oral culture has then somehow managed to translate all the way along to now. And like you can go and see these amazing stones and sculptures, and there's so much in your imagination for that. So I've always been very, very interested in the Picts. And then how it came about was Grom House Museum put out a call for applications, looking for somebody to do a podcast about them. And something that I always really wanted to do was join up like objects with stories and making. And again, it's because of what I was saying earlier. A maker can look at an object and tell you something about it that an academic couldn't. Do you know? You could say, right, it's used this hammer, or it's like, I've used this tool, or, we would have got it, we would have tanned the leather like this, or, your feet would have been wet in your shoes. And it's these kind of things that like an academic wouldn't necessarily be able to tell you. And one of the interesting conversations, one of the many interesting conversations with makers was, this all these different connections, all the interdisciplinary connections. And it's something that's really, it's still like in my mind, I'm still like brewing about a million ideas about it, because I spoke to Cynthia, and she's a weaver, right? And she drew this comparison between like the key patterns, the Pictish key patterns on the stones, and weaving patterns. And she was talking about how like weavers would have been talking to stone carvers. Makes perfect sense. And then it's like, well, how does that also connect with what else is going on in like society? And yeah, it's just there's so many aspects to it that um yeah, that I really wanted to explore. Like, and how does that fit in with our stories? And like, you know, did that sound it's just a big
Yeah.
massive ramble.
No, it's all
Because you're
good.
trying to condense kind of like a topic that took an entire podcast series to cover, right? In one question, which is no, and impossible.
I'm really, really interested in interdisciplinary ways of learning and working.
Yeah.
So again, that's partly why I use objects for storytelling, because you're talking about tacit knowledge, and memory can be triggered by smell, it can be triggered by touch. You know, we've got memory. Memory is kept in every single one of our cells. We tend to think about it as being in our brain, but actually it's in everything. Scientists know that you've got memory in your heart cells, you've got memory in your skin cells, you know, it's all in there. So the idea of like making something or handling it and talking about it and engaging, like all these kind of things, is really compelling for me. And I did a project with the V&A in London, which was really kind of like set me off on this interdisciplinary working malark. We had a project going where we were essentially lobbying Parliament to say you can't take arts out of the curriculum because arts teaches lots of other things and they're all connected. And one of the projects we did that was connected to that was with a group of surgeons. And they were newly qualified surgeons. And because they had never done handwriting or drawing, they couldn't use their knives properly. So they had graduated and they had passed all their exams, but they couldn't hold a knife with
Wow.
precision. So what we did is we paired them up with artists who used their hands, so people who drew, people who used puppets, you know, people who wove, all this kind of thing. And by the end of it, and it was quite a short project, really, it was only like a few months, but by the end of it, they were much, much better surgeons. They weren't very good artists. You need draw for toffee.
Wow.
But you know, you're not wanting if you're under, you know, if you're going in for surgery, you're not wanting them to do your portrait. Yeah, you want them to.
I did hear about that actually. Yeah, my partner was telling me about that. She was doing a master's in museum studies, and she told me about that. So that was you. That's
That was
fantastic.
me.
So obviously the Romans and later like the Saxons, they portrayed the Picts as sort of quite barbaric, you know. Um, did you learn anything that sort of really, I mean, from what you've told me, yes, but you know, have you learned anything that you say really challenges those, is very good to use to challenge those stereotypes?
I think if you look at their art, I think you'd be like, this is obviously a very well structured society. And you know, the fact that they were using French wine glasses, you know, early French wine glasses. So they were interested in
Sophistication.
yeah, and they were a very sophisticated society. You can tell that.
Yeah.
We assume, or you know, other people have assumed that because they didn't have anything written down, that that somehow makes them like less educated or more barbaric. But you know, I would say that's a shame because you're missing out on a huge amount of like, you know, cultural sophistication. I mean, the fact that they even had people who were carving these massive stones meant that they had to have an excess of food. Because, you know, if you're carving that stone like all day,
Yeah.
you're not going to be able to go and work in the field as well. Do you know, you need the daylight.
Yeah.
Or you need some kind of light. You need support to do that. and the fact that there was like, there's weavers, and the fact that people are portrayed as well in the stones. It tells you that there's all this kind of sophistication, and the metalwork that they found, yeah, there's so much. But I think particularly the glasses and the fact that we know that they were recycling glass by color. So if a glass got broken, they would be like, okay, right, green, and then they would make these beautiful, quite complex beads out of the glass sometimes as well, and they would mix the colors very deliberately. So that to me, all that stuff and more suggests to me a very structured, a very sophisticated way of thinking, and an artistic way of thinking. And if you're thinking artistically, then that also means that you're extremely well capable of abstract thought and concepts. And, so the idea of them being barbaric, well, I mean, Scottish people, we do tend to be quite blunt. So it might have just been that, they were quite, yeah, they might have just been very blunt in their communication, and that might have come across like that.
You got that a bit with the Saxons, haven't you? Like the early like migration era Saxons, they were seen in a similar light. But then you look at like the hilts and the beautiful sort of inlaid jewelry they were making. It's as you say, it's a really good way of putting it. Sort of you can measure a culture quite often by its art. Rather than think, oh, they weren't building with this, they weren't writing this down. It's like, look at the art they were making.
Yeah.
That implies they had the time to do it and valued it. But
well, every culture kind of tries to depict the enemy as barbaric too, don't they? Like,
yeah,
when you get that argument between Vikings and Saxons, where the Vikings say the Saxons didn't wash and all this kind of stuff, there's always a little bit of tit for tat with the enemy.
Listen, the Saxon forager here washes once a week, whether he needs it or not.
Only when you make me.
Sponge on a stick.
It's the same with the Romans as well. Like, we know that a lot of their history was written as it's propaganda. Like first, Caledonii are portrayed as being barbaric and brutal and
wearing skins and sort of.
Yeah, but once they'd conquered a wee bit, they were like, oh, they're so sophisticated, and it's only because we're so super smart that we managed to do it.
You see it with like the colonial sort of British Empire much later on as well. Like this whole like idea of painting your enemies or the people you've recently conquered as it goes from being horrible barbarians to the noble savage narrative, because it's like, oh look, we're working with them and we respect them now, never mind we're taking all their land, enslaved half the populace and half starving them, but it's
yeah, now they're cool.
Look at this nice marble bust we've made of one of them.
Yeah. Exactly. It was a beautiful piece of art that they made 1,000 years ago, but now it's ours. And they're cool with that. They're totally cool with it. Yeah, exactly. It's those kind of narratives. Yeah, the Saxon metalwork and art and the hoards and stuff. Yeah, they're incredible. Like some of them. Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah. So just to wrap up kind of this discussion on the Picts, I'm going to throw something back at you from your podcast. Borrowed, not stolen. So there's a question that you asked everybody on the podcast, was that if you could go back and speak to a Pict and you could understand each other, what would you ask them?
I would like to know if they had a creation myth. I would like to know what their creation myth is, because we have some incredible, again, like animist stories about great floods. And that's something that, has parity with almost every indigenous culture across the globe. And I would really like to know that. I would like to know how they think they came to be. And I think you could probably learn a lot about their culture just from what that is. So that's what I would like to know. I mean, there's so much though. I just spend an entire day following them around.
I quite like there was one I can't remember the lady's name, but you had a couple of musicians on and they were saying,
Oh yes,
get them to
yes,
listen to the band.
yeah. Yeah, teach me to play and come and see
Yeah,
my bands. Yeah.
yeah. I like that one.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah, they were wonderful. I like that too. Yeah.
Mm.
So, just a few quick fire sort of ones as as it's a crossover episode.
hmm
Um, we're gonna throw some of the ones that we usually put into the Wyrd Wessex. So we're gonna go back into the folklore and the strange briefly.
hmm
Um,
Our favorite place to be.
indeed. So this is one we ask a lot of guests. Do you have a personal favorite sort of cryptid or a creature or being from folklore that you find particularly compelling and intriguing?
I really like from folklore, I really like the Fua, which is from Gaelic folklore, and it is a creature which guards spawning fish. And if anybody tries to capture the fish, they can basically look into your soul and see the thing that you're most frightened of, and then they'll become that and then frighten you
Oh,
away from the fish. I love that.
That's good. That's
It is a
good.
good thing, yeah.
Another
And
nature
there's
guardian one as well. Do love those.
yeah.
there's an
I
exile a
also
bit like that as well.
I also really like from folklore the Glastig, which is like this. She was once mortal. It's a beautiful story about her. Like she's once mortal, and she's given the gift of being able to talk to all animals and beasts and things. But then one day she becomes half beast. Um, uh, and then like everybody knows it's still her, but they can't really recognize her. But they leave out food and things for her. And this is a really interesting story because, well, for lots of reasons, but one of the reasons is that we used to have stones in Scotland called Gruagach stones, and we would like pour milk or cream and things on them as an offering. And basically, in the story of the Glastonbury, in some of the stories, that's also what we do. We put like milk and cream in a stone for her so that she can, subsist, she can keep going, even
Mm.
though she's not allowed in kind of the mortal world or in the village. So I'm really interested in that story. I always like that one. And then a cryptid. Uh, I think the cryptids that I find most compelling are the ones that are in America, like some of the weird ones that are there, like the mantis man that's been spotted in America, like
Yeah.
emerging from the sewers, and the one I can't remember its name, but it like eats goats, and it's like
Eight
uh
goats.
yeah, it like sort of like sucks the flesh out of a goat and leaves
Oh,
just the skin.
is that the chupacabra or is that the
Chupacabra, that's it.
yeah.
Yeah, I think that pretty fascinating. And then from growing
Mm.
up, Bat Boy was always interesting. Did you ever see that? The Weekly World News, Bat
Yes.
Boy.
Mm.
Yeah, do those
Yeah.
ones. What about you? What are your favorite cryptids?
Oh, you
Oh.
can't throw it back at us.
Changes weekly, but uh
Andy's my favorite cryptid.
oh, you say the
Oh,
sweetest things.
the story
Um
of love.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's
I'm quite Andy will probably say I'm quite interested in kind of UFO and alien folklore quite a lot.
Mm.
I quite like a lot of the kind of stories that come from that. Um, or just your classic, I mean, Loch Ness Monster, right? I mean,
Mm. Oh
um,
yeah.
I don't know. This it's hard to pick a favorite because then I'm like, oh, we recently did Amphiel Amor,
Mm.
and that's quite an interesting one as well, isn't it? So I don't know.
yeah,
It's like
it's
picking your favorite child. I've only got one. Still
yeah.
can't choose.
Yeah, it does flip around for me quite a lot. Quite often, it's like occasionally it's like whatever dragon or beast from a story that I'm researching to tell or something. Like, it's um yeah, it's a difficult one. It's a difficult one. But then I do fall on the old classics now and then. I am, funny enough, quite partial to werewolves.
Oh,
Um,
I love a werewolf. That's yeah, okay. Let's add
um,
that. How
the
many am
the
I allowed to have?
many as you like. The Beast of Jevedun's one that I'm quite fond of as well.
Oh.
But
Wouldn't want to
yeah,
meet it though.
wouldn't want to meet it. No, no, probably not. From I
Which
can admire
no.
admire from afar.
I mean that links quite well to the next question though, doesn't it, Andy?
It does.
So there's a follow-up question that we've asked a lot of people lately is there a cryptid or a creature you genuinely prefer didn't exist, but also one you'd hope does definitely exist? And maybe if you could have one as a pet or a companion, which one would it be?
Ooh. Oh. I can't think of one that uh I wish didn't exist because I think it's yeah, you don't really know enough about them really to
Mm,
decide. This doesn't seem fair.
I can
Um,
think of some.
probably
What's
the
the name of
weird
that witch,
like
Andy, from Cornwall?
Yeah,
What?
oh
Vixiana.
Vixana.
The
Rather she didn't exist.
I mean, kelpies are pretty nasty, right? I wouldn't want to cross one of those.
but they're fascinating though again like they link into a sort of animist tradition and those are related to like the myths of our rivers so they're very much about uh protecting the structure of the river and so yeah there's different things in that one so I don't mind I think I see them more as being very much kind of pretty much all really
It's like a
land spirits.
balance.
Yeah,
Yeah, about balance and
Yeah.
reciprocity with the landscape and nature. But yeah, they're
Yeah.
horrible things, but uh,
Mm.
same with the fua. But and one I would keep as a pet, which one I really hope does exist is obviously Nessie, and I can't believe I didn't even mention her. Um, but I really hope that yeah, she does. My parents think that they've seen her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
can you get them on the podcast?
Call them up.
Yeah, they just said that it was very strange. It was like everything went completely silent. There was really beautiful day. It was very sunny, lots of birds singing, wonderful. They were having a wee picnic down at the loch, and then there was just nothing. Like all the birds just like
Yeah. It's the
Yeah.
Oz
disappeared.
effect. Yeah.
Yeah, and then there was there was suddenly these ripples on the loch. This is a massive loch. There's suddenly
Yeah.
these ripples when it had been like glass. And there was nothing like they couldn't see anything that it was related to and they felt really eerie suddenly and they felt like they should leave they just felt very much like oof. Um, and then yeah then basically they said it just like the ripples got really quite big and then very shortly after that they disappeared and all the birds came back and they were just like, well, that was really weird. They
Mm.
were pretty sure. They were like, that was something. Yeah, I love Nessie stories. This is all
That kind
related
of
to
makes me think something I wish didn't exist. Gotta be midges. Like my time up at Loch Ness, I was like plagued by midges.
oh, they're horrible. They're
Yeah.
just the
Are they
worst.
a
Yeah.
cryptid? I don't know.
No, yeah, they should
They only
be.
exist
The
in Scotland,
giant
don't they?
midge.
Mm.
One I would have as a pet. What would I have as a pet?
Also Nessie.
I know, yeah, that'd be great, just in the pond. Everyone would want a dragon, surely. Surely everyone would want a pet dragon, but like a wee one.
Mm.
Yeah. Just kind of, I don't know, to hang about with. Take the dragon for a walk. That'd be great fun.
Sounds like a euphemism for something that. Don't know
Don't
what
mind me, just taking the dragon for a walk. Sulphurous.
So yeah, to bring it back round to Will I Vike It, there's a few questions that I ask every guest to end each episode. Andy, do you want to go with the first one?
Yeah, absolutely. So do you think you could survive on a Viking Age diet?
Yes, I do think I could. I think it would be hard work, and I think it would be bad at times. I think I'd have to learn how to pickle,
Yeah, a
and
lot
how
more
to store
seasonal.
food.
Yeah, I've tried
Mm.
lacto fermentation once. It did not end well.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think I could survive, but for how long? Would it really be living? Yeah,
It's a good
I could
answer.
could do it for like a short while.
So
Survive.
connected to that is there anything you'd miss on a Viking Age diet?
Coffee.
That
That's
one comes
fair.
up a fair amount.
I was going to
A
say,
lot of
yeah,
people are coffee.
not the
Yeah.
first person to
Coffee.
say that.
Yeah.
I
Amazing how
need
many
that.
people need the caffeine.
Yeah. Yeah, coffee. And anything else? Um, I was gonna say crisps, but to be honest with you, like you could probably do it. You could probably make it. So it's still possible. They wouldn't have
No
eaten them,
potatoes
but
though.
yeah, potatoes, yeah.
That's
Crisp
the problem.
vegetable crisps are fine.
Yeah, you could still do it. So that would work.
Like
Not as
Put
good
as
though, are they?
salt. I like salt, so
Yeah.
it'd
nettle
be
leaves fried
fine.
up in some butter is quite good. That sort of hits the crisp spot.
Oh, yeah, there you go. As long as there's salt, I would survive. Because I'm
Yeah.
like a kind of horse. I need like a salt lick or something.
Hang up a little cube for you.
Yeah, no. Fine. Good for the day. That and my coffee.
Yeah.
Oh, straight to the heart. Doing great.
What's the weirdest thing in your kitchen right now?
Oh, that's a good question. Let's think. What's the weirdest thing? There's have you ever heard of a muffineer?
No.
No.
Would you like to see one?
Yes, please. I think.
I don't know.
Maybe.
Maybe.
Horsehair dildo. No, it's not. This is this is a muffineer. And this is a device. Any guesses as to what this device could be for?
Is there folklore behind it?
No,
Obviously.
unfortunately not. So it never comes
Oh.
out.
Let's make some.
So this is for putting powdered sugar on your muffins. A very specific device,
That is so decadent. I love it.
isn't it? I love the
Wow.
name as well.
Muffineer, that's
Muffineer. Call out the
phenomenal.
muffineers.
Wentworth, bring the muffineer, would you?
I know, yeah, totally.
Also
Yeah.
sounds like something you might go to the doctors for.
I
Got
know, I've got a
muffineer
bad
syndrome.
case of muffineers. That's one
Wow.
of the things, but there's an awful lot of other weird things. Got
I
some
mean,
nice
that's
meat
never
hooks.
come up before.
And I
That's,
doubt it
that's
will
a
again
first.
until you interview me and I've gone and bought one.
I got some nice, some meat hooks, some nice meat hooks, and herb dryers.
Those aren't weird.
Yeah, they're not
Perfectly normal to have a meat hook
weird.
hanging up.
Got a tire iron for lifting
That-
the stove pot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's probably the weirdest thing. A muffineer.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
It's definitely a podcast first.
And it's food related. So that's good.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good point.
All right.
Before you answer this next question, just be aware that occasionally Craig gets me to eat
Don't-
these
no.
choices. I'm getting in there early. Go on, Craig, ask.
Don't tell people. So the question is, what's the worst food or drink you've ever eaten? Bearing in mind that Andy might have to eat it at some point.
It
Most of the
was
episodes with me
so
on.
a wee while ago. My brother and I worked in libraries. We did some stuff in libraries, and my brother liked to host these things called like bush tucker trials for the kids. And what we would do is we would go to our local Asian supermarket and we would buy things and we wouldn't look at the translation and we would just buy them and we would ask the person not to tell us what it was because we were going to feed it to children. It was the 90s. Um,
How'd you get away with the? I was
Wow.
going to say the allergies and stuff like that.
it was the 90s, man. Didn't think about that
Allergies
stuff.
didn't exist.
Anyway, the kids are fine. They were
Wow.
fine.
They're
Did
still
tell their
alive.
parents
The
what
ones
was
that
going
lived.
on. Anyway, we had all sorts of interesting things like dried squid and stuff like that. And these kids had a great time. But one of the things we had was a sweetie, and it was a salted dried plum. And it's the most boggin thing I have ever tasted. It was not good at all. And one of the one of the children was sick, I'm sure. Ate one. Yeah, they all ended up in the bin. That's the worst thing I've ever had. That was not good.
Bargain.
Yeah, boggin. It's not good.
I
Bowfin.
love the you love the use of
Bowfin.
that
Love
term
it.
there.
Yeah.
I look forward to eating that one day.
Yeah, good luck to you.
On camera.
To be fair, it's been a while, Andy.
I know you've probably got a bunch more foods for us to. I mean, in his defense, Craig joins in as well. But trouble is,
Sadly.
of course, having been on his podcast as a guest a couple of times, I'd given mine. And so I do this worst food challenge. And the first one that comes up is the one I picked, which is jellied eels.
Uh,
Obviously.
It's all right. I'll make
Why
you eat
would
some egg whites, raw egg whites again, man.
what did jelly eels taste like? Because eels
They're
anyway don't taste
rank.
nice.
It's
the
so
flavor's
bad.
fine, but it's jelly with like bones and stuff in it, so it's a bit weird.
I
Yeah,
don't really
Apart,
eat
yeah.
fish, so the flavor's not fine
yeah,
either. But it was horrible. Horrible. The rest
it's
of it was
texture
like
more for me.
not nowhere near as bad in comparison.
Bear in mind, we've also eaten like dog biscuits, pedigree chum dog food. Yeah, these are all, yeah,
Thanks,
But
Nordic
those
Mythology Podcast.
but dog food and that, like people they used to have people doing the taste testing for that, didn't they? Is that right? Or is that an urban myth?
possibly an urban myth.
Hope it's
At the
true.
time, I contacted Pedigree Chum, and they told me not to do it.
For legal reasons, probably.
Yes, probably. But they also didn't get back to me until after we'd already done it, so it was too late at that point.
I think I'm all right. It's
Yeah,
Yeah,
felt a
it's
bit rough.
gritty.
gritty.
Yeah, gritty meat.
Honestly,
Oh,
we had like fermented like green sort of Greenland shark, at that same
That's
time, and
not terrible.
I preferred that to the dog food.
Yeah,
Um,
it's the longer you chew it, the hotter it gets. It builds like almost like eating chilies, so
it's
the
like
ammonia builds up in your mouth.
if you've been bopped on the nose, like you sometimes feel a bit tingly back there. It felt
yeah.
like that. It actually sort of it was getting up my nose. It was the ammonia. Yeah, it's piss shark. Um,
What you don't realize yet, Andy, is that I've yet to bring surströmming to the Longhouse.
I know I've heard you threatened I may be
What is
sick that day.
You know the
what,
fermented Swedish. It's fish in a can, and it ferments in the can until the can
oh
literally
yes.
bulges.
You have to
Yeah.
open it in water.
I barely nibbled it when I tried it. It was the smell. It's like rotten eggs. In fact, Hamish was there when I did it.
Yeah.
I'll
Yeah,
eat
we
it.
did
Did
it
he have
after one of
any?
our courses. We had no, we got it was with a guy called Terry, the science Viking. He's in Cumbria,
Yeah.
and he was on the course I was running with Hamish. And so he was desperate to try it. So he went halves with me on a tin because it's getting really expensive. So actually the company that makes it has gone bust, weirdly. So they're the more rare it gets, the more expensive it's getting. So we paid about 50 quid for the tin of this stuff. And Terry went halves with me, and then like all the course participants and like Hamish and the people that work at Morforge all just stood and watched me and Terry try to eat surströmming, and Terry was eating it like a seal, like. And he still says cardamom is the worst thing he's ever eaten.
No.
Yeah, he's adamant that cardamom is worse than surströmming. But
But
yeah,
did
so
he have like
there's.
he had his taste buds like burnt off or something?
I
Somebody
don't
say
know. He's a Terry. He might be listening to this. I don't know. Hello,
Hope so.
Terry.
Hello, Teddy.
I've referred to him to his face many times as being a dustbin. One time we were taking the silver skin off of a piece of venison loin because it's inedible. But Terry being Terry is like, it's not inedible. So he ate it.
What
Yeah,
happened? Was he all right?
it's fine. Yeah. I mean,
Everything's edible
inedible
if
is
you
the
chew
fact that
enough.
it's just chewy. I mean, it's
Everything's
just.
edible
Yeah.
if you chew enough.
He just struggled to get it down, but he got it down. And so as far as he's concerned, that was fine. And like, okay, sure.
Patrick's like that.
Yeah.
He's there you go.
Anyway.
Hey, adventurous
Dexter.
Teddy. Good on you. Carving a path.
Yeah. He's good fun, is Terry, but yeah, he'll eat anything.
So hopefully this isn't the answer to the last question as well. But what is the most memorable meal you've ever eaten, and why?
Well, do you know there's a whole bunch of profound things I could share, but I think genuinely the most memorable was my gran getting me to eat prawns for the first time because I looked at them and was like, those are aliens, and I'm not I'm not eating them.
Fair?
Yeah, I'm not
Yeah.
having it. No, underwater insects. You're not doing it. No, forget it.
Yeah.
And she was like, uh, there are no insects and you better eat them and you just try one, you just try it. And it was like, really, she got quite threatening about it. She was quite excited about having a fancy meal with prawns. So she was like, you better eat it. So I was like in the corner and tasted a prawn. I was like, and quite liked it. And I was like, oh, great. They're all right, actually. So I'm still not convinced if they're not aliens, though. It might be.
They look like aliens, as I said, very soft.
Yeah. So that was, yeah, they do.
Tasty
Weird wee
though.
things. But yeah, it's probably the most memorable. I mean, there's other times that like, but I think that's probably the most. My gran getting me to eat a baby alien
That fits well with the whole
for her
folklore and
birthday.
cryptid. And there we go. We linked it back in. So the last question that I ask every guest is that when you die, your relatives and your friends are preparing your grave goods. So what food and drink do you get to take to the feast in Valhalla?
I get a really nice bottle of Rioja. Do like a nice fruity red wine. Uh, and I get a haunch of venison, like a nice bit of venison with the silver skin removed, obviously. That goes in
Obviously.
Terry's grave. Says food, drink. What else? Those are the main things.
Mm.
Anything else? Can I take an object or anything? Or
Usually stick to food and drink just because
food and
that's what
drink?
I do. But if you
That's
want
I'm
to take
taking those
objects
two
with you, you
things.
can.
No, I think I'll take those two things, but I will take some apple ringy herbs as well, and
And
some blue hyssop
don't forget your muffin ear.
with my muffin ear.
Got to have a
All that
muffin in
There's
in
your
powdered
object.
sugar.
Valhalla.
Such a fun
So
object, such a fun name.
So yeah, I mean, maybe we can wrap up. Like, what's next for you? Have you got any new books, projects, stories you're working on? Anything you can tell us about?
Um, I've just spent a day in Seagate Sound Studio recording a couple of different projects. So One of them hopefully will come out maybe next year. There's a whole collection of stories. And then there's one that's coming out that I'm doing for the BBC, which should be out in October. So I'm working on that. And then in September, I've got 3 projects, 3 events. One is all around seaweed and the folklore of seaweed. And another one is a talk about how how Scottish people have recorded time, or like how we think about time throughout the ages. So I'm doing an object handling session on that. And then another one I'm doing is in September is about connecting food with folklore and going around this beautiful garden. So all these ones in September are taking place in St Andrew's Botanic Gardens, which is very cool. That last one is all about the multitudes that live within you, which is a kind of nice link about the idea of stories and the fact you've got this community memory bank. You carry all these people with you. So it's that kind of connection, as well as all your gut biome and stuff. And then in October, I've got some events with Appalachia groups. We're talking about death and folk traditions around death, Scottish folk traditions around death. I'm doing a project with my friend Scott. Callias Herbarium is who he is, and a couple of other buddies, Fiona and Maya. And we're doing a big event in Greyfriars Church in Edinburgh. And then what else? There's a couple of clan talks I'm doing in October. I'm doing something for the International Storytelling Festival at the end of October, which should be a really good one. And yeah, so there's quite a lot, quite a lot coming
Quite
up.
busy.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I've got like 15 events in October.
The food
exciting.
folklore one sort of particular interest to us as well.
Yeah, it's going to be really, I think it's going to be really beautiful because we're going to do a walk. So it's me and one of the gardeners at the Botanic Gardens, and we're going to do a walk with people around the garden, looking at some of the ingredients. They've actually grown, they grew their wheat to make their sourdough. So they've grown it and they've hand milled it and everything, turned it into flour, and they turned it into bread, and people are going to eat it. And there's this beautiful folklore about bread in Scottish folk tradition, and there's things about special breads that you eat when you're giving birth, or if somebody's just passed away, or if you want to have a prophetic dream, you eat a specific type of bread. So bread is really a big deal. And I love this idea of that we carry multitudes within us, not just bacteria, but also, everybody who's come before us is a part of us, and we carry that from the past into the present and into the future. Which I love that. So yeah, I'm really excited about it. And there's a chef that's cooking for everybody as well, which is amazing.
Nice.
Yeah. Anytime I don't have to cook, it's amazing. It should be really, really interesting. There's a plant I discovered. There's a plant called Dead Man's Fingers. So we're going to do some folklore about that. It's a tree. It's really creepy. It does actually look like dead fingers. But yeah, nobody's eating that. It's poisonous. But yeah, anyway, I'm going off on one.
Someone must have eaten to find that out.
What was that?
Someone must have eaten it to find out it was poisonous.
I know, yeah, totally. Did you ever see a series called The Northman, which is like a comical version of the Vikings?
Yeah.
And there was one bit where he's standing with a big drawing of different mushrooms and getting somebody to eat them, and then poisonous.
Yeah, I mean, sort of partially covered it with what you're working on, but obviously for listeners that are intrigued by what you do, what you're up to, where can they find you for more sort of information about what you do in your projects and follow you online?
You can find me lurking on Instagram. I am at Eileen Budd. You can also find my podcast, Scottish Folk, and hopefully I will have a new episode of that very soon. You can also check out Home with the Picts, which is Grome House Museum's Pictish podcast. Delighted to have been a part of. I think those are the main places really to find me. Either that or like, anywhere there's a standing stone, just look around. Might be there.
So yeah, that's the end of this episode, but it's not the end of the conversation because we're going to continue over on the Wyrd Wessex channel, and we're going to be chatting about ghost dogs and werewolves, I believe. So if anyone wants to hear more from Eileen, or you're just kind of into folklore in general, then go and find part 2. But yeah, for everyone else, I will see you all next time. Goodbye.
Bye bye.
Bye.